Welcome to our webinar today. So my name is Laura Travers. I'm the Pastoral and Project Facilitator for the Devon Alliance for International Recruitment. Today I've got Alicia and Victoria with me. Hi.
Hello.
Victoria, do you want to introduce yourself quickly?
Of course, yeah. So I'm really pleased to be here today with the lovely Laura and Alicia. My name's Victoria Stone, and I'm the International Recruitment Manager for the Devon Alliance. So I have the pleasure of supporting many overseas healthcare workers to come and work and live near us here in Devon and work for the NHS. So lovely to see you.
Victoria. And lovely Alicia. Yes, let's get to
Hello.
you. Hello.
Like you both know already, my name is Alicia. I'm working as a Band 5 resident nurse in the Torbay Hospital, and I work in the Cath Lab department. And I love to share with you all that I was recruited by your team on August 2023, and it's gonna be almost a year by next month that I have arrived in this lovely town. And thank you for providing me an opportunity to have this virtual collaboration with you all. And also that I'm also a part-time content creator. I have my own YouTube channel, and on my Instagram I talk mostly about nurses and nursing process, and I also share some information details to the aspiring nurses who wishes to come and work in the UK. And yeah, they would love to have this collaborations as well, because they had a lot of questions regarding the UK processing, and they were expecting some answers from me as well. So yes, thank you for the opportunity.
A pleasure.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Alicia's process with us, because as she said, she was recruited through us, which is really exciting. And the process kind of as we know it. And then Alicia's followers have put some questions to us that we're excited to answer.
We are indeed.
So yeah. So tell us about what you did before you arrived in the UK, and your sort of process with us. How did that go?
Okay, so my country, like I belong from India. So in India, I was working in ICU, and through TNAI, I was able to have an interview with you all. Yeah. The interview was really good. It was very smooth for me as well. And right after the interview, I was quite lucky that all my entire processing was very smooth. From the time of interview to the day I got my visa, it was just within 2 months. It was very quick.
Right.
Very quick.
Probably it's because I cleared all my exams, CBT, IELTS, and all my processing were ready as well. The entire recruitment thing, it was very smooth for me. I got all my answers through my email. There were certain, I had a lot of doubts. Like honestly, moving to a whole new country is quite it's a different kind of experience, and I was nervous as well, because I was leaving my entire country, my family, and I was moving solo as an individual. So I had a lot of doubts, but then I was supported throughout the processing as well. And after I reached here in the Turkey, I was supported by the resourcing team of our Torbay Hospital. They were very good, and we all have as we all know that in Torbay Hospital we have a lot of support for the international nurses. There are different teams out there, so they all help us to find our feet out there, and it was a lovely experience. They looked after us, they nurtured us. It was really good. I'm really grateful to them as well, till date.
Oh, that's really nice. Isn't
that so important?
Yeah. I mean, as you know now, the process isn't as quick, which we will touch on in a bit, but it just shows that when things are running smoothly, and we have got the positions that if you've done your OET and your IELTS and you've got your CBT ready, things can be quick when there are positions available. So that is why before we interview people, we say it's so important to have your English in place and to have passed your CBT. And then after you've had your interview, if there are positions available, it is really smooth.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's true.
Cool. So you came to Torquay. It's quite far from London, isn't it? So how did you realize that it would be quite far from London?
Yes, actually I had researched before moving out here, so I was quite expecting the distance to be quite far, but then I had researched more overall about the town as well, and I had checked out there. It seemed a pretty little town, and up to my expectation, it was good. People out here, they are really polite, they are really friendly. It's just a very lovely neighborhood out there. Like, I'm really happy out here.
Oh, that's great. It's interesting because the area we're in, which is an area called Devon, down in the southwest of the country of England. Yes, it's probably, I would say, about 3 hours away from London by train, for example. So it's important to know that. But within our region, we have a couple of cities, don't we, Laura? Which and you may have visited them actually, Alicia. But we have Exeter and we have Plymouth, both of which have, you know, big hospitals and represent cities, but they're small cities. They're not as big as London or perhaps, you know, so they're quite manageable, nice cities to live in. Torbay, which is actually where Laura and I are, as well as Alicia, which is a town. It's a seaside town, isn't it? And you know, in the summer, lots of UK people come and visit our area, don't they, for their holidays? And so it goes from a small town to a very busy place with all the tourists that come, the UK tourists mainly.
And I think like it's very like beautiful for the people who loves nature, and I'm that kind of person like who loves more nature, because I have always been brought up in a metropolitan cities which were very like quite busy. I was used to that hustle bustle, but once I came here, it's very calm, soothing, peaceful, you know. So I really like this kind of life where the life is kind of slow and slow pace, not like everybody is rushing, because I know London has its own beauty, but I feel even Turkey has its own, the nature, the beaches, the greenery around, and the friendly neighborhood, lot of pets around. Oh my god. So yeah.
Yeah, all those things matter, don't they?
Exactly. It matters a lot.
Yes, to do your research is important, isn't it? So you know, if you prefer a big hustle bustle, as you say, city such as London or Birmingham, then that's fine. And you know, there are opportunities. But we work across Devon and the southwest, and there are different opportunities. So it's important to do that research before you come. But I'm so pleased that you're enjoying it here, Alicia, and
totally,
you know,
totally enjoying.
And we're so grateful to have you. Honestly, we are so grateful to have you, and playing your part, your role within our, you know, within our NHS, which, as I'm sure you know, is something that, you know, British people, it's very important to them. You know, we fight hard for our NHS, and we're very proud of it, as an institution, as an organisation. So, so we're very lucky to have you, I have to say.
Thank you so much. It means a lot.
Thank you. Victoria, before we dive into the questions that Alicia's got from her followers, do you want to just talk a little bit about international recruitment with us at the moment and what's happening right now?
Absolutely. Yes, it's important because for the past couple of years, there has been a large amount of international recruitment. So we were recruiting regularly, sort of quite large cohorts of overseas nurses to all of our Devon hospitals. And then what's happened is we've got a couple of changes within the UK. So we've got a new government who's only just been in for the past week or so, who we hope will do great things for the NHS, but they're very new, and there's been like a pause with international recruitment because the 2 years before that it was like a big project to try and recruit nurses, you know, and then the project kind of came to an end, if I'm honest. We know that there are still vacancies, and we still need overseas nurses very much for the NHS, but it's a big organisation, the NHS, and it's taking time for them to be able to work out and provide us with the actual numbers of nurses that are needed. So we're waiting at the moment, aren't we, Laura? But we're waiting with the knowledge that there will be vacancies. It's just a question of the NHS working out what they call its workforce plan. So seeing where those vacancies are, and then communicating that to us. So
Yeah.
we pray every day that we're going to have the update with the
good news.
with the numbers, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, we went to that meeting, didn't we, about a month or so ago with the Home Office.
Yes.
And they said that international recruitment and international healthcare professionals are very much part of the NHS workforce plan for at least the next 5 to 10 years. So we know that it's not going anywhere. We're just waiting for them to step it back up again. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. And I know that will lead into some of the questions that have come from your followers. So we will say this when we answer the questions, but we really want to echo is don't give up hope. You know, we don't know when it's going to start again, but we hope that we will sort of know something, you know, after the summer, more towards September, October time. We know that it, you know, the winter happens and the pressures start again. So we're hoping that we will know kind of after the summer. But we would just say to the people that are waiting, just keep your documents up to date, you know, make sure your OET and your IELTS is up to date, you know, make sure your CBT is in date, because once we've got the go ahead and we start contacting people, you'll need to have all of your paperwork up to date, ready to go. So just like you did when you passed your interview, to make it happen quickly, because if it's not up to date, then you know we're going to have to you're going to have to wait for you to get it up to date, and you may miss a cohort if that is the case. So yeah, that's kind of what we would say.
Yes, thank you. I'll just let all my people waiting out there know as well.
It's okay. So ask away your questions. We're here for you.
I have like a few list of questions. I mean, like there were like hundreds of questions, but I shortlisted and I thought the questions which are most important according to the priority basis. So I just formed a PDF out of that.
Of course.
Fabulous. Very organized.
So like I keep getting a lot of DMs from the countries, ambulance countries, those are from Nepal and Pakistan. So they are like really keen to know whether NHS, they would hire them as an international nurses. So what are your take on this?
Right, so we have to be very, very clear with our advice on this particular question. So any nurses who are currently working in a country that the World Health Organization has deemed, has decided is red or amber, unfortunately, and it does break our hearts, please believe us, unfortunately, the Devon Alliance, so our team, is not able to support with the recruitment of nurses, unfortunately, from amber or red countries. We can only deal with nurses who are currently working in what are termed green list countries. Obviously, that includes India, the Middle East, the Philippines, etc. So yes, it's very difficult for us, but we have to abide by the World Health Organization's regulations there, and we're very strict on that. Individuals from red or amber list countries can apply directly to NHS hospitals where that hospital has a vacancy that it says is, you know, open to international applicants. So direct recruitment can happen, but it cannot happen through any third party, and we are a third party, although we're the NHS. So I hope that's clear. And
so even so, if they apply directly through any like NHS job website, so would they be sponsored, or they need to carry the cost of their entire processing?
No, I was going to say we would hope that the hospital would, you know, ethically recruit these healthcare professionals as they should. So the hospital should cover the costs. Whether they do or not, that is up to a case by case basis, but it's ethical and highly recommended that the hospital would cover those costs.
Absolutely. I think every hospital, hospital in the UK will have done, will have recruited nurses internationally in the past couple of years. So they should be very knowledgeable about, you know, what the nurses, how best to support international recruits, and we would expect those costs to be covered.
But just in addition to that, I would highly recommend that when people do that application on track, is just to say, you know, I'm an international applicant, I require sponsorship. So you're being upfront from the beginning, you know, and the hospital is aware of that before, you know, the process starts, and they're not aware. So just be honest of the fact that you're an international recruit and you're a pre-registered nurse, and that you will need sponsorship, and you know, it honestly is the best policy, definitely.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. So moving to the next question, as like there are a lot of questions from the freshers as well. They are asking whether the NHS they require any certain amount of experience time. So what would you all suggest? Like, do NHS still hire the fresher nurses?
Right. So within our experience,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a very good question, because we've asked that question many times of our trusts. Now, we have been told by the trust that we recruit for that a nurse will need 12 months experience
Okay.
after graduation
Okay.
in order to be considered. We do ask the question regularly. We would like it if freshers were able to be considered, but the current sort of rules that we work under is a nurse needs to have 12 months actual experience working in their country.
There have been a couple of cases in the past where we have taken fresher nurses at a hospital's direction. So if that is the case, we'll normally put something on social media to say that we're looking for fresher nurses, and that the trust is accepting them. So you know, it isn't the case, but if that is the case and it does happen in the future, we will put it on our social media pages.
But
we've had
having
one or
an
two.
experience always helps, isn't it?
Yes.
So
Definitely.
it's always the priority is always for the ones with the experience. That's what when I have been telling my audience that at least have a minimum of 6 months of experience.
Yes.
Because
That's
even
right.
we as a moving to a new country, before that, at least you need to have your experience as a graduated nurse, even I felt the same. So even I decided to take 2 years of nursing experience back in my country, and then I decided to move abroad.
That was a good idea.
The more experience you've got, the stronger your CV is. It's such a competitive market at the moment for international nurses, all kind of applying for the same jobs. And actually, some of the hospitals that we recruit for have even said a year over 6 months experience. So we would just say, get as much experience as you can, because if they're looking at, if you're both interviewed just as good as each other and they're looking at the CV and someone's got 2 years experience over 6 months experience, they're going to pick the 2 years experience. So get as much as you can.
That's right.
Thank you. And most of my audience, they also wanted to know that if they are a resident nurse in the UK already, will the NHS fund for their higher studies?
Yes. So the good thing about the NHS, and this is why we love our NHS so much. One of the reasons is that once a nurse is in country, has and is working as a sort of band 5 registered nurse, then it's very important that they have career development and study opportunities over time. That's a very important part of the NHS's ethos, its ethics. So it's very, for each individual. If the nurse wishes to do a higher study that's relevant, to the NHS, then the NHS would pay for the cost of that course. So whether that be an MSc or more, the NHS would cover the cost of that study if it's relevant to that nurse's development and career development. So great opportunities within the NHS for all of that.
Really good opportunities, and there are some places that you can reach out to. So the Florence Nightingale Foundation, they do a lot of courses with relation to that, and the universities and things. But I would just add on top of that, if you do want to do a course, get the details, and before you sign up, just talk to your line manager about it to see funding wise, support for you for the CIPD, because you will need study days. Is there another member of staff in the team that is perhaps already taking study days? They might say, can you do it in 3 months, or can you just wait because person X that works on the ward. So there is support, but you just need to clear it through your line manager for the practical side and all of that as well. So Florence Nightingale Foundation is a really good website to have a look at for additional education, or the diaspora group. So you've got British Indian Nurses Association that you can find on social media, the Filipino Nurses Association, West African Nurses Association. Every nationality will have a nursing association support group on social media that you can find, and often they post about programs that are open to support nurses and their development, and they run like workshops and things, so they're really good to have a look at. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Even I wasn't aware of it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'd like to take on it. Another is there are like lot of nurses from India who wants to know that do they need to be, their college especially needs to be associated with the Indian Nursing Council, or if it's just associated with the State Nursing Council, will it work? So they just wanted to know that.
Yeah, as long as they've got a degree or a nursing qualification, they are a registered nurse associated with the I don't know what the registered nursing council is in India. I don't know what it's called.
It's the Indian Nursing Council.
Yeah.
We have two, like one is like just affiliated to the state, and the higher one is the Indian Nursing Council.
I understand.
Yeah, there has been quite a discussion, like NHS hires only the nurses from the college who has passed out from the Indian Nursing Council Association. So they were quite worried about choosing their college, because the dream is to come and work to the UK. So they want to go into the college which is associated with INC, that is Indian Nursing Council.
Okay.
So they just wanted to know, does NHS focus on those part, or just having a nursing degree is more than enough?
Having the nursing degree is more than enough, and then as long as a nurse is a registered nurse, it could be state or the other. As far as I've never come across any difficulties or issues. So get your degree, do some work as a registered nurse in your home country, and that's sufficient for us. So please don't worry too much about that. To reassure your followers.
Thank you. I'll just let them know, because even the certain small doubts create so much of tension and stresses among the upcoming nursing students. Like they were really worried about choosing their colleges.
Bless them.
As far as I knew that like NHS doesn't have such requirement, but then I just wanted a confirmation, and thank you. I'll just let them know. And we also had some questions like, do NHS look like where we have a working experience certificate, right? So do they need the nurses who is working back in their countries, do they need to work in some reputed hospitals having large bed capacity, or is there a limit to any bed capacities? Like,
really?
No. All experience, providing it's professional experience, post-qualification counts. We do understand that, sometimes if you gain experience in a busy, multi-bedded, large hospital, that can be beneficial if you're going to, say, one of our cities where we have larger hospitals. That may be helpful. But in our experience, we've never looked at a CV and said, oh, they've only worked in a smaller hospital, so that doesn't count. We accept all genuine work experience after qualification. Would you agree, Laura?
No, I would. And also I would just say on top of that, actually, that the ratios are different in the UK. So we've often looked at CVs where, it's been one nurse to 4 patients, where in the UK it'll be one nurse to maybe 7 or 8 patients on a ward. So that is the only difference, isn't it? We don't look at the bed capacities, but and I wouldn't say, oh, this nurse has only done 1 to 4, but the nurses just need to be aware that they will be stretched more in the UK nursing wise.
That's true.
Okay, thank you. So moving for the next questions are like, what are the major points that can lead to the failing of interview? So the questions are from the people who are expecting an interview soon, so just wanted to know what are the red flags that they should avoid.
Very good question. I mean,
this is you.
I was going to say, I will try not to talk for too long. No, that's a very valid question. My advice to prepare for an interview is to think about so that you can give examples of a time where you've helped a patient, where you've done perhaps a process or a procedure, something very straightforward like infection control. Think about examples that you've come across in your own nursing life
Okay.
And just be prepared to talk about those examples at your interview. That would be my absolute advice. Take some time when you're asked the interview question, take a breath, try to, don't rush your answer. I'm sure that you will have the answer at your fingertips, as we say. If you've got some experience as a registered nurse, you will have done the things that they will be asking you about, I promise you. So you do have the information. It's just about taking a breath and just thinking about that one patient perhaps that you gave really good care to and why that was important to you. Or, as I said, perhaps examples about your lived experience. So, for example, where you have to make sure everything is documented. That's very important here in the UK, that you follow the correct sort of processes and procedures, that you document everything, and that you escalate to a more senior member of staff if necessary. Those are the kinds of examples that come up in our interviews, and it's all things that you will have come across already in your day-to-day life as a nurse. We're not trying to catch anyone out. No. We just want to hear that you know your subject.
We want you to pass. We want people to pass their interviews. So it's not, but yes or no answers aren't going to cut it. You need to expand on the answers. So, for example, what did you do to prepare for this interview? I mean, that might be a question. It's it may be. You need to say you've done your research. You've really thought about some instances where you've cared for patients and you've got examples that you can back it up with. Because the more you talk about the question and the more you expand it, the more things they've got to write down about you to say that you've aced that question.
More points,
so all points. Talk because they've got things that they want to check off that you've covered. So if we were talking about hand washing, when you were just to talk about there's different ways to hand wash, isn't there? So if you were just talk about a gel procedure, just rubbing, using gel, where you could have also talked about if you were going into surgery and you were doing a hibby scrub, or if you were doing a proper 30-minute hand wash or just a quick hand wash, and you would do all of the points. They've got more to write down that you've answered the question for, rather than just saying I would use a gel.
Oh, okay,
yes, that's right.
And
if someone's a little bit shy or perhaps finds it experienced interviewers do know that it's a very big deal, and it's hard for people, and we're full of admiration for people who are prepared to come on and have an interview, with clinical staff at this end, and in a language that's perhaps not their first language. We are full of admiration. So for those who are perhaps a little bit shy, please don't worry. The interviewers are there wanting to help you, wanting you to succeed. If you're not sure about or haven't understood a question, they will say it in a different way. Please don't be afraid to say, I'm sorry, I didn't, could you repeat that? And they will do so. As Laura rightly said, we want our overseas nurses to succeed at interview, and we know you can do it. So please don't be too afraid of the process.
Oh, thank you. It will be really helpful for the upcoming aspiring nursing students, because I know, like, English not being their first language, they are already quite nervous about giving the interview. But then, I mean, like, even when I gave my interview with you all, like, even I was quite nervous. I was like, I need to break through it. I need to go through it. But then it was very smooth. So I keep telling them as well, it's just a matter of time. And once you get in that, you'll go with the flow.
That's right. Hopefully you can relax a little bit when you know the people that are interviewing you are friendly and they're on your side. So so please don't worry too much. And we do understand how difficult it is to be sitting there doing an interview. So they our interviewers are well trained, and they have they're there for you. They would reach out if they could and hug you.
They would. And as a registered nurse, you should find the questions that we ask easy, because they're
straightforward.
They're written by registered nurses for registered nurses. It's not going to be if you've got 100 ml of this and you add this, it's nothing crazy. It's as a registered nurse you would know those answers. So it's just calming yourself,
That's right.
collecting yourself. If you don't understand, we've written them in a way, they're quite the questions that it's very easy to understand. There's not complicated words in there. It's all written so the nurses will understand. But if there's any problems, as Victoria said, then they'll rephrase the question. They'll try and get the best out of you.
They're patient.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, a day in the life. Think about a day in the life of a registered nurse. What do you do from sort of when you start your shift, and what sort of big steps do you have during the day? That's something to think about. What processes do you come across? Medication rounds, that kind of thing. Right through documentation to handover at the end of the shift, for example. Just thinking through what you would normally do in your working day, and those answers will come for you at interview.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank
Also,
you.
talking about the experiences, a lot of my audiences, there are nursing teachers, as known as educators back in my country. So they were wondering, in case if they have 5 to 10 years of teaching experiences, would that be taken into consideration as an experience, or do the NHS want a proper clinical experience and not the teaching experience? So what is the thing about it?
Yeah. That's a very interesting question. Again, good question. We have recruited nurses who are now clinical tutors with perhaps 2 to 3 years experience of clinical tutoring, so therefore not hands-on nursing. I know we've recruited a number of nurses with that kind of experience. If they have really long experience as in a teaching role, we would probably have to speak to the hospital and just check that was suitable for them, because they will be coming in, as you know, to do a hands-on nursing role. So we would probably look at that individual and speak to the hospital first, because there isn't a clear rule on whether or not we could consider their application. Is there, Laura? I mean, a couple of years, we've definitely placed nurses, but if it's really significant length of time, I'm not sure. We'd have to look at it.
I think in the past, because we were recruiting at such volume,
that's right,
that it was easier to place a nurse like that. I think these days I've had nurses in the past that do half of their week as a clinical tutor and then half of their week hands-on the ward, which I think is a kind of a good way to do it, if they were still to have a day a week, say, working on a ward, to kind of keep their fingers in. But you've also got to remember that the OSCE, which you will do within the first couple of months of arriving, is very clinically sort of based. So and you're going to be working on a ward, so if you've been off the ward for so long, you're really going to struggle. It all depends on the person and the jobs that we've kind of got going on at the moment, but I would say right now, as we don't have an abundance of roles, so that nurse isn't going to be the first pick.
I agree with you. We have to be honest, don't we, about these things, and much as we would love to have it help everybody, recent hands-on experience on a ward is generally what our hospitals would prefer.
Thank you. Also, there were certain questions, if a candidate has done masters in nursing back in their own respective countries, would that add any kind of value coming to the NHS, or do they need to start from the band 5 nurses as an international nurse? So that's also very major questions.
Good question. We do recognise that we have nurses that we've brought over with, as you rightly say, masters in nursing, etc. So the vast majority, most of our nursing recruitment has been into band 5 sort of positions. We do take into account previous experience, so length of experience. So perhaps a nurse with a master's in nursing who's got who's worked on a ward as well for 4 years or something, they may come in at the middle of band 5, for example, so they may be paid slightly more. But that depends on their length of actual hands-on experience, not so much their education. However, once the nurse is in the UK, I think it's important that the nurse with their line manager and with their team, you know, if the line manager knows that nurse has done their MSc in nursing, their conversations around what their career development will be could be different. So it could be that they get into senior nursing positions possibly more quickly because they are more qualified, but they would have to sort of start at the band 5, and then it would be about their career development and progression conversations that the masters might come into play.
Because they will still need to get their PIN just like everybody else, you know, to be a registered nurse in the UK. So it is best to start off on that footing to get that experience, to pass the OSCE, to then launch the career and see what support is available to them. So yeah, totally agree.
That's quite fair as well. And there were certain questions as like, do NHS sponsor any nurses with disabilities? So I was receiving quite a DMs about it as well. Like there were certain group of nurses who were like hard of hearing. So they were just wondering whether NHS would consider recruiting them as well. Is there any job scopes for them in the NHS?
We would absolutely welcome applications from nurses with disabilities, providing they're able to, you know, do the nursing role. Yes, we would definitely support those applications. And the way it works in the UK is providing, as I say, you do your interview, you can do the role as a hands-on nurse, that's what matters to us, and we make what are called reasonable adjustments to the workplace. So if an individual has a certain disability, then it will be looked at, and we will look at how we can best support the nurse with that disability to succeed in the workplace. So usually very practical changes can be made, but the NHS would it is the responsibility of the NHS to then make those changes to support that nurse. Does that make sense? So yes, we do, and we would recruit nurses with disabilities, absolutely. It's all about them being able to do their role as a band 5 nurse initially. So yeah, great.
Yeah, that's really good to hear that, because I was also not sure about it, because I have never encountered that situation, so I was unable to answer it. So I said that like I'll get back to you. So yeah, I can get back to them as well. They might be waiting for the answers.
Wonderful. Yes,
that's good.
Like I have got, like there are still students who already have visa. They are in the UK, so they just wanted to know that like since they are international students in the UK right now, will they still be able to do some part-time jobs in the NHS?
Apparently now that there's been some recent changes to the visas, and I'm not an expert on all visas or all of these recent changes, because it's been complicated. However, I was on a meeting just this week actually when with lots of trusts, and the question was asked, can a trust employ somebody who is working in another role or who is studying on a part-time basis? And the answer was yes, if it's up to 20 hours a week. I believe the top amount of hours that they're allowed to employ somebody who's already in the UK on. Yes, that makes sense. It's 20 hours.
And they do check it. They do check, so you can't work over.
Have to. So up to 20 hours is fine.
Okay. So, and how do they need to apply to you all if they want a specific job role?
We couldn't do it as a registered nurse because they would need to work full time to be able to pass their OSCE. So they couldn't work for the NHS as a registered nurse for 20 hours if they weren't already a UK pinned nurse. So we could only do that if they were a UK pinned nurse. And then they would have to apply through the hospital's bank system or get in touch with the hospital to ask how to do it, because if they were already a pinned nurse, then they wouldn't need our help. But if they wanted to work 20 hours as a healthcare assistant, they could apply directly to the hospital. So we wouldn't get involved there. We can only help people who want to get a health and care visa to work full time as a healthcare professional in the UK. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was really
All
helpful.
right. No problem.
Also, and there are like quite amount of audience who have already given interview in the Devon Alliance as well.
Right.
So they were just like awaiting, like they have cleared the interviews and they are just waiting for the course.
Of course.
So like you said that as of now there has not been any official announcement. So the intake might take a time, right? So would you like to pass some message to them so that they kind of feel relieved, because there are so many nurses out there who has been waiting for like very long time, so they would love to hear a word from you all, just a word of reassurance.
Of course.
Well,
we've both got something to say, so you go first, B, and then I'll say something.
You. I mean, we absolutely are aware of our nurses who are waiting so patiently and with such good humour. So thank you. Waiting for an update and news of when their COS might be issued. It's I can assure you that from where Laura and I sit, you know, I'll be honest, it's been very frustrating, because what we want to do is support overseas nurses and healthcare professionals to come and work in the NHS. That's what we do. So it has been frustrating. However, I refer back to Laura's earlier information that the workforce plan for the NHS definitely has significant numbers of overseas recruits that are needed, and we are just waiting patiently for the news of when the next cohorts will arrive, and when we need to start contacting nurses to fill those cohorts. We would love it to be now, but we are having to wait, trying to be patient, as our wonderful overseas nurses are. We just want to say a big thank you, and it is, you know, please understand it's difficult for us. We would love to be issuing your COS tomorrow, but we are waiting for an update still.
Yeah, totally echo what Victoria says, and we don't like giving bad news, you know. I'm definitely not in this job to give bad news, you know. We like making people happy and making their dreams come true about coming to the UK to be a registered nurse. But you know, we're waiting, and we just really appreciate people waiting patiently, you know, keeping their exams up to date, so when, you know, the gates open and we're ready to issue those COSs, they're ready to go. If, you know, when people are assigned to a cohort, as soon as we've got those roles for them, we'll get in touch. But if they do want to get in touch with our team, obviously they're welcome to reach out through social media, and I will reply to them. Or if they want to email our team, it's Devon Alliance, all one word, at nhs.net, and Paul and Kerry and the rest of the team will all get back to them and give them an update, and even like look at their application and say, I can see that, you know, this expires soon, just to keep all their documents up to date. You know, that's all we can advise. But we're so grateful, you know, keep the faith. It's not just us, you know, it's happening all through the NHS. And also the other thing that I would say is, you know, if you feel that you want to apply somewhere else, please feel free. You know, you've got no loyalty to stay with us, you know, and as much as we love our candidates, if you know of an opportunity where they're saying, you know, I've got a COS for you tomorrow, please go for that, because we would hate to be the reason that you haven't gone for a job that you know that you really want to go to. So
yes, that's right. Yes,
thank you. Yes,
thank you. It was so lovely to spend some time with you today.
Yes,
it's nice to catch up as well. We had a lovely catch up before.
We did. It's
before
great
you
to
went
hear how well
live,
you're doing in Torbay. That's what we want to be doing. You know, we want to be bringing additional overseas nurses over, and it's been just so lovely to see you, Alicia, I have to say.
Thank you. Same here, Victoria, and thank you for addressing all my questions.
Pleasure. Honestly, it's a pleasure.
Yeah,
like it's good to give a lot of clarifications to all the nurses who have been waiting out there, because they needed an answer, and even I wanted to answer them, but then I just needed you know, the solid confirmation, you know.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
means a lot. Thank you for
Yeah.
taking your
Great.
time out,
No,
Laura and Victoria.
pleasure.
Such a
Oh,
pleasure.
if
Yeah.
you want to do, if you get more questions off the back of this video,
Yes.
you know, we can do another one in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Obviously you're going to post it. We'll post it as well. We'll put
Yeah.
all of our links under
Yeah.
our post so people can get in touch with us. And we're just sort of, you know, waiting now. So
We're just
hopefully
waiting.
good
Yeah.
news in the future. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, winter pressures are coming. We're hoping.
yeah. Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
time.
It's
It's lovely
wonderful
to
to
see
see you.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you so much.
Take
Take care, my
care.
darling.
Thanks,
You too.
Alicia.
Bye-bye. Bye,
Bye.
Bye, Laura.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
Victoria. Bye.
Bye.